welcome back to another edition of Inside the Nest. I am your host here, John Schneider, credential media member for everything Roswell Athletics. Today we are bringing you our Gainesville game preview. At the time of this recording, it is game day. It is wee hours of the morning here on a Friday here. With an all-important game looming here for the Hornets. Heavy region implications coming into this game. Hornets and Red Elephants. Let's preview this matchup here. So, quick preview going into this game. And just giving you a brief implications of what on the line here later tonight, if you will. Right? Again, super early in the morning. It is for the region for Gainesville, and it is a keep region championships hopes alive for the Hornets here. So leading into this game, Gainesville has beaten Milton. They've beaten everyone else in the region. The only team this is Gainesville's final game. They're against us at home at their place. I remind you, happened last year with the 48-45 win at Ray Manis for the Hornets. So the Red Elephants are going to be looking for some sort of revenge and validation over the Hornets. Say, hey, yeah, we have beaten everyone, and the only team we lost to was currently ranked number 13 from the country per max preps in Carrollton and the Carrollton Trojans. So looking into this, Roswell needs to, if they want to keep region championship aspirations going here, and this also has a lot of playoff seeding implications here down the line as we march towards the GHSA 5A playoffs here. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just parched, I guess. You get 4 teams in per region. Roswell's definitely going to be in. Same with Milton, same with Gainesville. It just determines who. And last time Roswell won their region was a few years ago before they added Milton and Gainesville back into a region, just changed up the entire regions. And honestly, without a doubt, this is one of the 2 hardest regions in the state of Georgia. I think the other one you could possibly mention in there is the one that has Houston County and TCC in there, and Lee County, which is ridiculous. And TCC is Thomas County Central, by the way. Heavy implications. Hornets, in order for the Hornets to win said region, which is 7A, or Region 7, is you need to go on the road and beat Gainesville, and then you need to come home and beat Milton for the first time since 2016. Yeah. So, from that standpoint, I wouldn't necessarily say the odds are in the Hornets' favor, but I'd definitely give them more than a fighter's chance. They knocked off Gainesville last year and played Milton close up through the third quarter, then things just kind of got out of hand. But nonetheless, that's down the road here. We'll worry about that later, and at the end of this episode, towards the end of this episode, we'll go into what could possibly happen if Roswell beats Gainesville, and then Milton beats Roswell, and then it's just a whole crazy just what the heck. Because the GHSA rules surrounding, a 3-way tie and deciding a tiebreaker is kind of ridiculous. Not from technically the rules. The rules kind of make sense. It's just when you have this loaded of a region, it makes it extremely difficult. So, now, let's get into it. This is the number 8th ranked game of the week per Max Preps. It's going to be, I believe, on 680 The Fan, so just add more and more build-up for this game. Going into it, Hornets coming off a massive win over Lanier, 57-0. I think prior to these final 2 games, I think you want to look at 2 litmus tests throughout the season. You're going to want to point to that Buford game, and then you're going to want to point to this Lanier game as kind of like the back half of the region where the schedule is very backloaded from a sense where you face Lanier, you face Gainesville, you face Milton. There's no more bye weeks. You don't get another bye week until the week before the playoff starts. So, I think the Lanier game was the most encouraging, just the way the Hornets played it, how physical they were, how they got whatever really they won on the ground. Trey Smith was amazing again. Defense played shutout ball, and got to a Lanier offensive line that's got some pretty good commits on that offensive line there. I'm not totally sure who else on the offensive line, but from what I've heard, they've got a couple quality college commits on that offensive line there. Now, going into this game, Hornets will be without, again, Hayes Kennerly. I think he's done for the season, likely, or he could come back in time for the playoffs. I'm not entirely sure. Also, since I am a student, some stuff I've noticed. Elijah Stenbullion has been walking around the hallway in a boot, so that doesn't give me a lot of hope that he's going to play in this game. So you're going to have to rely on I forget your first name, man. It's something Smith. You're going to rely on Brody Duffy, obviously. He's one of the captains of this defense, as well as Tyler Presnall, who's been playing his butt off as well. Now, D-line, Gainesville's got a really good offensive line, and I think the key for going into this game is you're going to need to find some way. You can't stop Nigel Newkirk, but you can contain him to some degree, and the way you do that is you don't allow yards after contact. You stop at the line, you're in pretty good shape. That's what Carrollton did, and that's how Carrollton ultimately beat the Red Elephants here. You stop them at the line. Now, they do have the option to go to, excuse me here, just looking at my notes here, Dwight Lewis. He's a very shifty running back. He's kind of similar to, I guess, if you want to give a point to Roswell's Nick Peel and Dre Kuzi, or along those lines. He's more of he kind of plays more like Dre's little brother DJ, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Containing the running backs for Gainesville is going to be key. And also, Kareem Hewley, the quarterback for Gainesville, has been very accurate. He is committed to Clemson. I believe he's a 4-star. He's been very accurate all season. He has only 21 to 4. That's his touchdown to interception ratio. So he keeps it clean. He doesn't throw picks. He doesn't make that critical error. So you're gonna have to force him to make it. So then you're gonna end up relying on, again, Brody Duffy. Yeah, Brody Duffy. Excuse me, not Ryder Duffy. Excuse me. Brody Duffy, Josh Emerson. You're going to rely on Alex Lucas. You're going to rely on O'Shawn Walker to get a push up front. That, to me, where they don't really go. Gainesville doesn't really like to pass the ball. They're more smash mouth. They were to play high quality defense. Excuse me. So not allowing Newkirk to get loads of yards after contact, because that's when you get in trouble. And I think you kind of saw that where Lanier got theirs on the ground, sort of, in that game. And I was talking to some people pointing out, like, you can't allow that against Gainesville and the player that Newkirk is. And as well as Dwight Lewis will make you pay as well. So it's how well you contain the run, and obviously not having Elijah Stimboy hurts this. But I have faith in the linebackers and what they're going to do, and as well as the secondary for locking the rest of the Elephants down here against Josh Niblett's squad as the head coach of the Gainesville Red Elephants. So Christian English is still staying in. You don't have Daniel Battershell. Excuse me. Forgive me. No Daniel Battershell for this game. He's suspended for the rest of the regular season, which is serving a 2-game suspension after he got ejected from the Lanier game for throwing a punch. So going through this here, again, you're gonna have to be continue playing that physical brand of football. You keep Newkirk in check, and if you're gonna have someone, I'd rather have it Dwight Lewis be it than Newkirk. Newkirk's also a threat out of the backfield in the passing game. They kind of use him similar to Nick Peel, how Nick Peel's used here under Coach Thompson's offense. They kind of, again, smash mouth football. The throw more outside towards the boundary, similar to Roswell's. Roswell plays more of a spread offense than they've compared to Gainesville's, if you want to point to that. Now, looking to the offensive key success, you got to play smart. You got to play a clean brand of football, here. And you got to avoid the critical errors. You got to you just got to be smart, right? You got to, no dumb penalties, play smart, play physical, play fast. Don't make any don't blink. That's, to me, I think you gotta play almost perfect game of football here to beat the Gainesville Red Elephants. So, again, the reason why this game is so hyped up and the reason why this is so important, one, again, like I said earlier, if Gainesville wins, the region is theirs. It's game over for the Hornets for region hopes. They'll still definitely be a top 3 seed in the playoffs or top 5 at least for 5A going into Gainesville's number 1 team in 5A. The Hornets are 5. So it's a 1 versus 5 matchup. For perspective of how loaded this region is, Gainesville and Milton are 1 and 2, and then Roswell's 5. Yeah, whoever. I want to know who at GHSA decided to make this region, because it's kind of ridiculous. But don't shy away from quality competition over here. Again, Gainesville's ranked 33rd nationally per Max Preps and 4th in the state of Georgia. The Hornets are ranked inside the top 18, I believe, and I'm sitting at 131 nationally. So there is that a decently sized gap in the Max Press rankings. Excuse me. So from the offensive perspective as well, you're going to need to establish the run game as always. Get Dre Kuzi involved. Get as much touches as you possibly can. Same goes with Nick Peel. I like the way that they've utilized Sean Smith recently, going from the Johns Creek game and just the way they've leaked him out in the passing game. He's been also a really good blocker as well. And then you're also gonna need to hit Wills Campbell when he's open, and some check down, some Mirabella here and there. Key thing is giving Trey Smith enough protection up front here. Gainesville's got a lot of studs on their D line, especially it's a senior-led D line. You got to keep Jamarian Matthew out of the backfield, as well as, of course, the key guy here on the Gainesville defense is 5-star linebacker, Alabama commit, and one of the 2 best linebackers rated in the country in Xavier Griffin. So that's going to be a problem, as well as Caden Fussong and Marshall Leonard. Just keep those guys away from Trey. Now, I feel extremely confident in Trey's mobility and the way he's been able to run the ball and be a complete dual-threat quarterback. I think he's arguably the best dual-threat quarterback in the state. So I expect him to get his and make the plays when he needs to. He is a big-time player that makes big-time plays. Now, if we want to look, it's going to be tough for the Hornets. You're going on the road. You're going to Gainesville. Gainesville's been on a roll here recently, but so have the Hornets here on region play. Granted, it's been against a Johns Creek team, Seconder, and basically since the Buford game, the Hornets have really locked it in here. If you want to point back to that Buford game here as going back to a litmus test, they kept paces with the Wolves for up to basically the end of the first half and showed resilience. So they showed a lot of fight and resilience after getting down 28-7 and coming back and making it a real ball game. They showed a lot of resilience throughout the year, and Coach Thompson's abilities to make end-game adjustments has proven really well for the Hornets, and they're really deep at running back. Again, like I said, from both Kuzi brothers to, well, I guess Dre is more of an athlete. He kind of spread out wide, and you can use kind of him as a Swiss Army knife as you will, which is going to be one of the keys to this game, as well as getting Wills Campbell involved. Trey Smith, the Wills Campbell connection has been really good all season for the Hornets. Now, you want to look at, say, well, let's point out that Gainesville's, they don't give them many points. They really don't, and they score a lot of them. They average around 40 or 42, and granted the Hornets are average around 44, but you can kind of, maybe that's slightly inflated from the past few games just being against Lanier. The Lanier outcome shocked me personally. I did not expect a 57-0 whooping. Essentially, it's what it was at the end of the day. And I was more expecting Lanier's a good warm-up test for Gainesville Milton coming up, and you should probably win by 2 touchdowns. And Lanier put up 30 on Gainesville here and 23 in the first half. So, and Lanier loves to run the ball, so I guess it's kind of just beat Lanier at Gainesville at their own game here. So, I think mobile quarterbacks definitely hurt them, from what I could see. But again, they have that athleticism on the defensive side of the ball as how well their eyes are trained. Graded, I'm not sure. Their defensive quality is definitely not in question from here. Josh Niblett's got that team rolling defensively, and he's a very. Have you ever seen an interview of Josh Niblett? Again, this is the Gainesville head coach. The dude's jacked. He's ripped. He looks like he's about to go out there and shoot up himself and take someone's head off. Like, he seems like the coach that you want to run through a wall for. I mean, granted, not to say that Coach Thompson isn't that. It just seems like the dude's, like, all business. He's, in my opinion, he's, from a couple videos I've seen, he seems like the Dan Campbell of Georgia high school 5A football, from what I can see. Yeah, so now, moving on here to we're going to call this segment here, mini segment within the ultimatum of this episode. Of the Round the Region here segment. Going into the last couple weeks here of the high school regular season. Lanier is on bye. Johns Creek faces off against Milton. Again, it just doesn't end for Johns Creek, does it? Now, looking here, you got Seconder playing Chattahoochee. I think Seconder's more likely to get a win there. And which you could possibly point out here. I think Lanier still has an edge over Seconder in region play for them to get into the playoffs here. But Seconder could have a sneaky could backdoor themselves into the 5A playoffs. I don't think there's no at-large bids. It's just the top 4 teams in every region in 5A. And then, of course, you have Roswell at Gainesville. Milton goes to Johns Creek, and Chattahoochee goes to Seconder. So you're going to look probably at a Seconder victory as well as a Milton victory as well. And now it's time to going back to that. Yeah, so that is our Around the Region segment, and Seconder's 4-4. Milton 6-2. Again, as mentioned earlier, they are number 2 in 5A and still highly ranked in the state. Johns Creek, they're in 8, I believe, now, and still have yet to score a single point all season. Chattahoochee 1-7, I believe, going into up to second year. And then Roswell and Gainesville are 7-1, both respectively. With Roswell's sole loss coming at the hands of the Beaufort Wolves, and Gainesville's sole loss coming at the hands of the Carrollton Trojans. Now, as for a game prediction for this game, going back to, as aforementioned earlier, how well is that pocket clean? How clean is that pocket for Trey Smith throughout the night? How well can you establish the run game with Nick Peel and some bits of Drake Housie? I think the odds definitely, it's not, if you're going to pick someone off the street and say they're probably going to say Gainesville's probably favored in this game, and I wouldn't necessarily argue that. I'd argue that, no, not from a favorites standpoint here, but I wouldn't doubt that Gainesville's probably favored in this game. Sort of, they're hungry for it. They know what happened last year, but if you want to go to the Roswell side, it's you get another win over this Gainesville team specifically. It's validation for all your hopes and dreams coming for the rest of the season and into the playoffs, and especially with the Milton game looming. So I think it's gonna be another one of those games where it's back and forth, similar to last year's game, maybe a little less scoring, or maybe not. Coach Jonathan Thompson's offense is very high-powered, shall we say. The dude puts up points. If there's one thing that we know for sure about him, he puts up points, and that's undoubtedly testified from the games, these past few games, and how they played. You're going to need Trey Smith to be clutch as always. You're going to need clutch stops for the defense, especially in stopping Nigel Newkirk and Dwight Lewis. I'd say Gainesville is favored, obviously, like I said earlier, but I'd probably say as well the game, I'm as far as a prediction wise for who's gonna win this and get a key region victory over the other, I'm leaning more Gainesville, unfortunately, for this, but that doesn't mean the Hornets can't win. They have more of a fighting chance. I think Roswell's in their head a little bit after last year. Granted, if you want to go back to, it's kind of just back and forth here. As you go back to that state semifinal a couple years ago, Team 73, Gainesville got that over Roswell and knocked him out of the playoffs. So it's kind of just, we'll see if it's a back and forth, or will Roswell get another victory and get a metaphorical grip on Gainesville here. I'd say, again, official prediction, I'm picking Gainesville to win. Unfortunately, it's not going to be that Beaufort game where Beaufort just takes control and just never lets go again, where the Hornets can't get back into it, or after a certain point where the Hornets do get back into it and they just take total momentum of the game. It is a region game, so obviously heavy implications going from region title aspirations to just overall want of either team here. So I wouldn't be shocked if Roswell won. I'd be ecstatic, and if we were sitting here on either Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, whenever I can get a reaction out from this game, or if we're standing on the sidelines of Gainesville Stadium and we're discussing Hornets victory, then I'm going to be elated. I think as Hornets fans, you should be elated as well. You would have notched a win over a top 35 team nationally and the number 1 team in 5A and a top 5 team in the state. And that'll serve as a monumental confidence booster here going into Milton. And at that point, then you take care of Milton, the region's yours. Now, as mentioned earlier, what a 3-way tie would do if you really want to get into it, and we'll get into this later after this Gainesville game and how it progresses. So, hypothetical scenario here. Let's lay it out for y'all. Roswell goes up to Gainesville, beats the Red Elephants, come back home, play Milton. Say Milton beats Roswell again, yada, 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 right? Knock on wood that doesn't happen. Then it becomes a total crap cluster of how you decide who wins the region at that point. Because Gainesville's done after this game, and they'll have basically 2 weeks to prepare for the playoffs. Because don't get me wrong, Gainesville, Milton, and Roswell will all be in the playoffs. I mean, it's kind of self-evident here. Now, if you want to point to who wins the region, so first, let's just go through this here. Probably the hardest region in 5, or the second, one of the 2 hardest regions in 5A. And honestly, one of the top 5 hardest regions in the state, if you will, here. Everyone will beat each other, so that's your tiebreaker there, right? It's rendered useless at that point. Then you point to, all right, what's your record against the region? Well, since this region is so top loaded with Roswell, Milton, and Gainesville, everyone already beat up on the rest of the region. So again, all have wins against Lanier, against Seconder, against Johns Creek, especially. I'm sorry, Johns Creek. I'm really hoping you score this week if against Milton, or you beat Chattahoochee, which again, then mentioned there, Chattahoochee. Yeah, so Lanier, Johns Creek, Seconder, and Chattahoochee are the other teams in the rest of the region here that all three, Milton, Roswell, and Gainesville, have beat pretty handedly. Now, you're looking to, all right, the rest of 5A. Well, no one played another 5A non-region game, so that goes out the window. Then you look to common opponents for other team, and I guess maybe your opponent's record, maybe. Again, just ranking the quality of win here, and I think you'd point to the Lanier for all of them, but it's just still, it's null and voided, if you will. So, all right, well, if you're gonna want to let's just take Roswell and Milton's schedule to start off here. Well, the common opponent between Milton and Roswell is that they both play Buford. Buford has beat both of them. So, what do you do then? You point to the rest of the non-region schedule. Roswell's played the rest of 6A teams in beating Westlake, Peachtree Ridge, and Walton. Milton has played a team in BT. Roswell fans, we don't really like BT or again, this is coming from the Roswell fans' perspective here. Again, BT's been a great football school here recently. And obviously, the same goes for Milton. I mean, Milton won the state title last year. So, look, Milton played a 4A team. Roswell played the rest of 6A teams. Roswell won all of them. Milton did beat BT. And then they also... Here, let's share the good old screen here. So, if we want to point here to... Excuse me here. Something a little new we're introducing here to the show. Let's look at Milton's schedule, and we'll compare it to the Hornets. So as you can see here, Milton's game against next up against Johns Creek. Looking here, 3-1 in the region. They played the First Academy. They played Alpharetta and BT. And then here's the rest of the region. Alpharetta, I believe, is 6A. I'm so sorry, guys. Alpharetta is definitely 6A. And then if you want to, here we'll look to, let's go back to the Milton game here. We're looking at Max Preps, which is a great way to get your fix in for all high school sports. Milton, rest of their schedule, they've played the First Academy, which is at the First Academy, which I believe is a team possibly, in Orlando, Florida. So that's kind of hard to compare to, that's definitely hard to compare Roswell's schedule, because Roswell's only played teams from the state, and they've played a consistent all 6A class teams. Now, if you want to go back and search up Gainesville, Gainesville Red Elephants. Now, Gainesville here has played Carrollton out of region, and they've played, pull up the schedule, 8-1. They played Marietta, 6-18, they won. Played Moody, I think that's a 4A team or 6A. Okay, here's the common opponent for... Alright, we'll go back here to us right here. If you're watching on video podcast on Spotify, you can see it there, and then you'll see it here on the Inside the Nest YouTube channel here later. So that's where you can find Inside the Nest and all of our sports talk for your Hornets and content as well. So, common opponent for the Hornets and the Red Elephants is Westlake. Both beat Westlake. So it's kind of just like, well, everything's all even. Everyone beat each other. Everyone beat up on the region. Everyone took care of the games they were supposed to. And in the case for Roswell and Milton, you both lost to Buford. So trying to decide this region, if it comes to this, which, the easy thing to do here is you beat Gainesville on the road and you take care of Milton at home, which, again, is easier said than done. Which, Coach Thompson, if you want to grow your reputation here at Roswell, go beat Milton. Beat Milton for the first time in almost a decade, which is crazy. We're approaching on a decade here. So, which I think this team can definitely do. I think we'll get into this later. I think Roswell beats Mill. So, as for game prediction, I do have the Red Elephants getting a narrow victory, but would not be shocked if our Hornets snatch one away from them in the dead of night up there in Gainesville. Again, like I aforementioned earlier, if you like the show, tell your friends and family about it. Share it with any alumni of Roswell High School, any fans of Roswell, any students as well. Here, you can find it on Inside the Nest on YouTube. We do have hopefully a Trey Smith interview coming out here soon, which the video is already made, right? It'll be up on YouTube and Spotify here shortly. And then we have an interview with your kicker, Varos Marty. And then, yeah, so find it on YouTube. Get your fix in for all the Hornets sports talk, content, and highlights as well. They're on Inside the Nest on YouTube, which if you can't find it, should be on Inside the Nest RHS. And then on Spotify, you look up Inside the Nest, you'll get it, and you'll be diving into this Gainesville game like me here, and hoping our Hornets can take down the Red Elephants. I am John Schneider as your host here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Inside the Nest, a preview edition of Inside the Nest for our game against Gainesville here. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to a rather long episode. It's probably the longest episode Inside the Nest has had. But thank you everyone for listening. If you like the show, go tell your friends and family about it. And stay solid, everyone.